Not Andre.
The DiMera kidnapper revealed. Kristen and Tony are in shock. Salem had always lived under the shadow of the DiMera name. The mansion itself loomed like a dark monument on the edge of town, its iron gates creaking in the cold night wind as though whispering secrets from generations past. For decades, the DiMeras had kidnapped, betrayed, resurrected, and destroyed one another in cycles so familiar they felt inevitable. So when word spread through Salem that another kidnapping had taken place, one with unmistakable DiMera fingerprints, most people came to the same conclusion almost immediately.
Andre. Of course it was Andre. Or so everyone thought.
Kristen DiMera stood in the grand living room of the DiMera mansion, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor as she paced back and forth. Her hands trembled despite her efforts to stay composed. Rage, fear, and something dangerously close to guilt churned inside her chest.
This is impossible, she muttered under her breath. He's dead.
Andre is dead. Across from her, Tony DiMera leaned heavily on his cane, his expression grim and guarded. Years ago, he had vowed to leave the darkness of his family behind, but darkness had a way of finding its way home. In this family, Tony said quietly, death has always been more of a suggestion than a rule.
Kristen spun to face him. No, not this time. I watched him die.
We all did. Tony didn't respond right away. Instead, his gaze drifted toward the tall windows overlooking the grounds, where fog curled around the statues like ghostly fingers. The DiMera estate had seen too many resurrections, too many miracles that weren't miracles at all. And yet, Tony said finally, someone has taken Ava Vitali.
Someone with access.
Someone who knows our tunnels, our security blind spots, our history.
Kristen's jaw tightened. Ava. Kidnapped without a trace. No ransom note. No dramatic announcement. Just gone.
And Salem is convinced it's Andre, Kristen said bitterly. They always blame him, even when he's not around to defend himself. Tony turned back to her, his eyes sharp. The question is not who Salem thinks did it. The question is who actually did. Down at the Salem Police Department, the name Andre DiMera was already plastered across the board in bold red marker. Rafe Hernandez stared at it with frustration etched across his face.
I don't like it, he said, arms crossed.
It's too easy.
Jada Hunter glanced up from the case file. Easy doesn't mean wrong. Andre's got a history.
Kidnapping, manipulation, psychological warfare.
It fits.
But he's been declared dead, Rafe shot back. And even for this town, bringing Andre back again would be excessive.
Jada raised an eyebrow.
You knew here.
Rafe sighed. Fair point. Still, there's something off. No Andre-style theatrics. No mind games. No taunting messages.
Maybe his learned subtlety, Jada suggested.
Rafe shook his head.
Andre never did anything quietly.
He wanted to be seen.
He wanted the credit. And that was the first crack in the story Salem had already accepted as truth. Late that night, Kristen found herself alone in the mansion chapel, a place she rarely visited but always felt drawn to when her world began to unravel. Candlelight flickered against the stone walls as she sank into a pew, pressing her palms together. I didn't mean for this, she whispered, unsure whether she was praying or confessing. I didn't mean for any of it. Memories flooded her mind, memories of manipulation, of secrets she had buried deep. Kristen DiMera was no stranger to orchestrating chaos.
In fact, she'd made a life out of it.
And that was what terrified her.
Because this kidnapping felt different.
This felt personal. A sudden sound echoed through the chapel, a soft clap, slow and deliberate. Kristen froze. Well, well, came a smooth voice from the shadows. If this isn't a touching sight.
Her blood ran cold. That voice.
No, Kristen breathed. You're dead. A figure stepped into the candlelight, his face partially obscured but unmistakably familiar.
The dark eyes. The crooked smile. Andre DiMera. Or someone who looked exactly like him. Kristen stood so fast the pew scraped loudly against the stone floor. This isn't real, she said, backing away. You're not real.
Andre chuckled. You always were dramatic, dear sister. Stay away from me.
Kristen shouted, her voice echoing through the chapel.
Andre raised his hands in mock surrender. Relax. I'm not here to hurt you. Kristen laughed hysterically. That's rich, coming from you. His smile faltered for just a moment, long enough for Kristen to notice. You think I kidnapped Ava, Andre said calmly.
Kristen's eyes narrowed.
Didn't you? Andre shook his head slowly.
No. And that's the truth. Someone wants you to think it was me.
Someone wants to drag my name out of the grave.
Kristen swallowed hard. Then why are you here?
Andre stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Because I know who did it. Elsewhere in the mansion, Tony was following a lead of his own.
The DiMera tunnels.
Most of Salem believed the underground labyrinth had been sealed years ago, but Tony knew better. He moved carefully, flashlight cutting through the darkness, when he noticed something new. Fresh footprints.
Someone had been down here recently.
Tony followed the trail until it led to a hidden door, one he hadn't seen in decades. He pressed his hand against the wall, and with a soft click, the door slid open. Inside was a room lit by a single overhead bulb.
And tied to a chair sat Ava Vitoli. Ava.
Tony rushed forward, cutting her restraints. Before she could speak, a voice echoed from behind him. Touching reunion.
Tony turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was not Andre. It was Stefan DiMera. Tony's eyes widened in shock.
Stefan, you're supposed to be
dead.
Stefan finished with a cold smile. So was half this family at one point. Ava struggled to her feet, fear flashing across her face.
It was him, Tony.
He took me.
Stefan clasped his hands behind his back. I didn't take you.
I relocated you.
For what? Tony demanded. Stefan's expression darkened.
To send a message. To whom?
Tony asked. To Kristen, Stefan said simply. And to Andre. Tony's heart sank.
Andre's alive.
Stefan nodded.
Unfortunately. Back in the chapel, Andre's eyes gleamed as he delivered the final blow. It wasn't me, Kristen, he said softly.
It was Stefan.
He wanted you all to believe I'd returned to my old ways. He wanted to remind Salem that the DiMeras never truly change.
Kristen felt the room spin.
Stefan wouldn't.
He would, Andre interrupted.
And he did. Moments later, Tony burst into the chapel with Ava close behind him. Kristen, Tony said urgently, Andre's telling the truth. Kristen turned, her gaze bouncing between the two men she had once loved and feared in equal measure. Not Andre, she whispered, the realization crashing over her. It was never Andre. Andre smirked. For once, I'm innocent. The revelation sent shockwaves through Salem. Kristen struggled to process it all. Andre alive but not the villain this time. Stefan orchestrating the kidnapping from the shadows, Tony caught once again in the crossfire of his family's sins. And somewhere in the chaos, a dangerous truth emerged. The DiMera legacy was far from over. As sirens wailed in the distance and Salem prepared for yet another reckoning, Kristen locked eyes with Andre.
This changes nothing, she said quietly. Andre smiled.
Oh, dear sister. It changes everything.
And in Salem, that could only mean one thing. The nightmare was just beginning.